Conversations That Matter is a partner program for the Centre for Dialogue at Simon Fraser University. The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you.
The Vancouver Police allowed us to join them on a distracted driver awareness campaign. When traffic stops moving, the police walk down the road between vehicles, looking into cars to see if you're on the phone. Now, they used to dress up in clothing that would suggest they were maintenance people working on the road. However, much to their disappointment, they learned they don't need to disguise who they are. That's because drivers on their phones are blind to everything around them, including a police officer in a high visibility vest. Have smartphones turned us into dumb drivers? Neuroscience has disproven the popular misconception that you can multitask, and soaring accident rates prove the point. And that point is, you may have a smartphone, but if you use it when you're driving, then you are a dumb driver. We sat down with Mark Milner of ICBC for a conversation that matters about smartphone addiction and what the insurance company and the police are doing to get you to leave your phone alone when you're behind the wheel. Mark Milner, welcome to Conversations That Matter.
Thanks for having me.
What is it about smartphones that make us such dumb drivers?
Well, it's not just smartphones, first of all. We do a lot of things to distract ourselves, but smartphones are...
Other dumb stuff.
Smartphones are probably the most common thing that we use to distract ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason for that is the way they're designed. They're designed in a way that makes you want to look at them. That it's an immersive technology, and it's one that it's designed to trigger a certain kind of behavior that you'll check. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't hear a notification or a tone or something like that, you'll check to see if there is one.
I was just reading an article that said an awful lot of these companies want you to sort of look at your smartphone or your phone as kind of like a little bit of a slot machine where you get a little ding, a little payoff. And so they keep coming up with things to make you come back and check, did I get some likes? Did I get a message? How many followers do I have? And on and on and on and on.
Sure, and that's how social media works, right?
Yeah.
So it's, you can put something out there into the Twitter sphere, and if you don't get a like, then you'll probably feel sad. But when you get people liking it or retweeting it, you get excited. You get a little endorphin rush. And it's the same thing with video lottery terminals and slot machines. The pinging and the flashing lights induce a kind of an endorphin rush. That and that's your phone is designed to generate that, and the apps that you download for your phone are designed to generate that as well.
They want you to pay attention.
They want you to look at them, and they want you to look at their app and not somebody else's.
Yeah,
but that's a different.
And they don't seem to care whether or not you're behind the wheel of a car or not.
Well, it depends, right? So there are. We just heard the other day that Apple is going to be introducing a feature in their next version of their operating system for their phones that will prevent notifications and text messages and things like that from distracting you if it detects that you're driving. Now, unfortunately, you can opt out of that.
Yeah.
You can say, oh, I'm not really driving, I'm a passenger, or I'm on a bus, or something like that. And but at the same time, it's an effort, it's at least a recognition that there's a problem here, and that the problem begins with the technology, and maybe the technology can help to solve it.
Well, the whole concept of smartphones has entered our world, I guess, about 10 years ago when Steve Jobs realigned the iPhone, and then the rest of the world followed along behind. Before, you had a mobile phone, and it was a phone, and that was it.
Yeah, at the beginning, you had a phone, and all what you could do with it is talk, right? So, and that's distracting.
Even doing this.
You're looking for your phone, you're reaching for it, you're dialing, you're scrolling through your contact list, whatever. That's distracting. Okay, even talking is distracting. But that kind of got ramped up a bit when the phones put a nice colorful screen and you could send text messages. So at first, text messaging was, you had to press 7 4 times to get an S, right? You had to, it was really an involved task to send a text.
Mm-hmm.
When the BlackBerry came out, suddenly there was email, and there was GPS. So it's amping up a little bit more. And then the smartphones came out, the iPhone, and then later the Android phones, and it's just exploded. And so now we've got, smart glasses, we've got smart watches, we've got all kinds of things that are vying for our attention, all kinds of technology.
I was reading that the average phone user touches their phone somewhere between 1,300 and 2,000 times a day, and the addicted person may touch it up to 5,000 times a day.
That wouldn't be really surprising. I mean, you go to a sporting event or a concert where people have paid a lot of money to be there, right? So say a Canucks game or a Miley Cyrus concert or something like that, and people are all looking at their phones, whether they're down like this tweeting or Facebooking or Instagramming, or they're up like this taking a video of whatever it is that they've paid a lot of money to come and see, and they're looking at it through this tiny little screen. So it happens. People look at their phones all the time, and you see them when they're out waiting for a bus, or when they're at a cafe, or when they're standing on the SkyTrain platform, or they're in a meeting. See lots of people pull out their phones in meetings and start looking at them. So
okay, I'm guilty of all of those things.
Sure.
And I'm aware
Most
of
people
it,
are.
and I am guilty. And I try and go, no, I'm not, and still I do it. So even if I'm aware, and I'm wanting to have this conversation with you because it scares the daylights out of me when I'm watching somebody coming at me, and there's no divider between me, and I can see their vehicle like weaving down their lane, and I'm thinking, okay, that person's probably on their phone, and sure enough, they are. And they could very easily not catch that move to take them back into their own lane and collide with me.
Absolutely, or they could not notice that the traffic in front of them has stopped and drive right into the back of it. And
Right.
we've seen an increase in rear-end collisions that result in injury. But in the sort of the first 4 years that the smartphones were around. Now, we don't know that smartphones caused all of that problem, but it was an interesting coincidence. And that's, we really started to look more carefully at the issue of smartphones and driving when we started to see that trend.
Some of the statistics that your office sent over to me suggested there were just about 80 people who died last year that they believe are attributed to distracted driving. 80 people.
Right, that's an average over 5 years. So over a 5-year span, about 78 people a year die in crashes where distracted driving is one of the factors in that crash. That's a lot.
It's a lot of people.
That's
a lot of lives that are affected.
over 5 years. That's close to 400 people. So those are all preventable deaths. We would really like to see people leave their phones alone. That's been the focus of our campaign for the last 3 or 4 years, is to encourage drivers to leave their phones alone when they're behind the wheel. But it's really tough because of that issue where the phones are essentially inducing that checking behavior.
So let's talk about exactly what the rules are right now, and then what are some of the strategies that you're developing or employing to try and get people to leave their phone alone when they're driving? So what am I allowed to do? Because you go to a party, people talk about it, and everybody's got a different take on exactly what the law is.
Okay, so you're a fully licensed driver.
Yes.
Right? You're not in the graduate licensing program. You can use your phone hands-free. Now what that means is frequently misunderstood. What that means is if the phone is attached to you, for example in your pocket, or it's attached to your car, you can use it as long as the activity that you're generating can be initiated with a single touch or through voice commands.
A single touch to the phone, or to some other
single touch to the phone, or it can be, a lot of newer cars in the past few years have that functionality built right onto the steering wheel, which is very helpful because you don't have to look away or reach away. You just press a button on the steering wheel.
You're allowed to do that.
You're allowed to do that. What you can't do is have the phone in your hand for any reason. It doesn't.
Any reason at all?
Any reason at all, even to shut it off. If you're in traffic, you cannot have the phone in your hand. It can't be loose in your lap either. So we've seen some people try to get around the rule by having it in their lap and putting it on speakerphone. Speakerphone's fine. It's not the best option because it's really hard to hear and you have to shout. But it's fine as long as it's attached to you or to the vehicle.
Okay. What if it's sitting on the seat next to me?
Well, the problem with that is it can move around a lot. And so the police officers have some discretion in that. Now, if the phone is just loose on the seat beside you and you're not doing anything with it, police officers probably not going to give you a ticket. They might just give you a warning for something like that. But if
Just that it's sitting there.
Yeah, because it is a distraction if it's moving around. You're going to, at some point, you're going to reach over to pick it up and put it somewhere else. You might be stopped at a light at the time. A lot of people think they can use their phone or touch their phone or do whatever it is that they want to do with their phone at a light. They can't. It's not allowed. So you are considered to be driving as long as you are in care and control of your vehicle. So having your foot on the brake is part of that. So if you want to do something with your phone that isn't hands-free, you need to find a place to pull over, someplace where it's safe and legal to pull over, put your car in park or neutral, put the parking brake on, and then you can use your phone. Then you're not driving.
I think about during my driving career, a mandatory seatbelt legislation came in, and then workaround headrests and drinking driving counterattacks. And we saw all those social engineering programs actually have effect. I don't know anybody who gets into a car and doesn't buckle up. I don't know anybody who would drive around in a car without a headrest.
There's about 3% of people right now in BC who don't use their seatbelt.
Really?
And they die frequently when they're in crashes. So what we're trying to do is encourage people to adopt safer behaviors. And so what we were talking about with the hands-free use, that's a legal behavior. It's still not as safe as not using your phone at all. And we want to be clear about that. We're not promoting hands-free use as a perfectly safe option. It is safer than using your handheld phone because you're not looking at it. You don't have one hand occupied or sometimes two hands occupied with your phone.
Yeah, some people like the steering wheel against their knee and they're texting as they're driving down the road.
Yeah, and as somebody, I'm a motorcyclist. I do a lot of road trips I've done them in the United States. I've seen people doing that on the freeway at 75 miles per hour, and I just try and get away from them as quickly as I can.
Yes.
Here, what I mostly worry about is people rear-ending. That's really the biggest worry that most people have. As far as now, people do also when they're on the freeway and they're texting or checking Google Maps or something like that, they can drive off the side of the road. So sometimes,
and that does happen.
Yes, it does. Or they can drive into oncoming traffic, like as in the example that you mentioned earlier, where they're weaving. And that is one of the common features of somebody who's distracted, is that they have a hard time keeping their lane position. They have a hard time maintaining a consistent following distance. And they don't maintain their speed very well. So they slow down, they speed up, they slow down.
The light turns green and they're still sitting there.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's annoying, but what is more dangerous is when the light for an adjacent lane, say a turning lane, turns green and they're 4 cars back, and they see the person beside them start to go out of the corner of their eye, and they start to go before they're allowed to, and then they rear-end somebody. Or they hit a pedestrian if they're at the front. They start making their right turn.
Okay, that brings up an interesting point. I watch pedestrians these days. I'm stopped at a intersection. I watch them walk out into the intersection on the phone, kind of strolling across, no hurry to get out of what I consider to be the most dangerous place on the road, an intersection, and unaware of what's going on around them. It's as though they trust that everybody who's a driver is going to see them. So we add that in too.
Yes, you do. And you're right about intersections, because 60% of the crashes that occur in BC happen at intersections. So a lot of people think the most dangerous place is on the highway. The most dangerous place is actually at intersections and interchanges, and that's because vehicles and other road users like cyclists and pedestrians are wanting to occupy the same point in space at the same point in time. And so that's why we have controls like red lights, and or we have roundabouts.
Don't walk signs that nobody seems to pay any attention
stop
to any
signs,
longer.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are the fines? So actually, I want to I can touch my phone to answer it, but I can't be dialing to call someone out.
No, you
because
have
that's
to
more
be,
than a one touch.
You have to be able to do it with one touch. So you can touch your phone so that, say, the Siri or the Android equivalent comes on and asks you what you want to do, and then you can do the rest of it with voice command.
But you can't be.
But you can't be
repeatedly
poking, and you can't be
touching. Okay.
scrolling. And
So what does it cost me if you catch me doing that?
it will be a $368 fine and 4 driver penalty points.
4.
So the importance of the 4 is that that is the number that automatically triggers a driver penalty point premium invoice.
And does it increase your insurance rates as well?
It doesn't, not the insurance rates on your car. The driver penalty points is, is the insurance premium you pay for the privilege of driving if you accumulate points.
Oh, okay. So when you go to...
So before you renew, and you should do it well before you renew if your renewal is far away, because it accrues interest, you need to pay that off. So the bill for 4 points is $175, but it goes up
on top of the 360.
On top of the 368. So that one ticket, assuming you have no other tickets that year, that one ticket is going to cost you $543.
What happens if they nab you a second time?
They nab you a second time, and those are the only 2 tickets that you have, and they're in the same period of time that the system scans for your points. It'll cost you $1,256. So you have the 2 $368 fines, and you have $520 of driver penalty points. And that's what I mean. It doesn't go up in a linear fashion.
It's exponential.
It goes up in a curve.
Yeah.
And it can become very expensive.
Okay, what happens if you get caught a third time within that period?
Probably before you get your 3rd ticket, the superintendent of motor vehicles will have looked at your driving record, and you may have become part of the driver improvement program. So if you get 2 or more tickets in a year, the superintendent of motor vehicles looks at your driving record, and they can suspend you for 3 to 12 months.
So there is no financial argument that you could say, well, I was working on a big deal and I had to get this done. It was worth it. It really, you've structured this so that it's going to hurt.
So much cheaper just to have a Bluetooth.
Is there something that you can do if you have somebody who's a repeat offender and you go, we're going to disable your phone, or there's something that we can introduce to make it impossible for you to use your phone?
There's nothing ICBC can do along those lines. So ICBC really is, we're an insurance company.
Yeah.
Our interest here is keeping British Columbians safer on the roads and reducing claims costs. Those are that's really, we want people to stop dying and being injured. And the main reason is because we're human beings, and that's not something anybody would want. But the second reason is that it will help us to keep claims costs lower, which will help us to keep rates lower. So the short answer, though, is no, we can't do anything to prevent you from using your phone, to force you. So there's some things that could be done technologically speaking.
But right now, I have to choose to opt into that.
They are, right now, yeah, those are all choices. So
am I, as one driver, allowed to take a picture of another driver and report them and then have them ticketed?
No, but a passenger can.
Okay.
But if you're driving your car and you've got a camera or you're using your phone to take a picture,
then I'm in trouble too.
You're breaking the law.
Yeah, but could a passenger, I'm driving next to somebody, they're using their phone, can I take a picture of them and their vehicle as long as I've got like their license plate number? Can you take action on that?
Again, ICBC can't. What you could
But
do,
the police could?
you could take that those photographs and give a statement, a sworn statement to the police. You may have to appear in court. There's a lot.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
So people aren't going to do it.
I wouldn't think very many people would.
Is the answer ultimately self-driving cars?
That's an answer. And I think it may be an answer to more than just the distracted driving problem. But it is one of the answers, and it's probably closer than people think. I would think you'll start seeing self-driving cars, other than test vehicles, 5 to 10 years from now.
Yeah.
But it's going to be very disruptive as a technology, at least as disruptive as a smartphone. Now, the nice thing is, if they work as people are saying they will, that you'll be able to sit in that car and do whatever you want. You can
Work, watch movies.
Work, watch movies, knit.
Yeah.
You know, play games on your phone. Anything you want.
Yep. I can hardly wait.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Because in the meantime, we have, I think, the dilemma of our time. How do we get people to put that phone down while their hands on the wheel?
And that's tricky. And so, you know, we're working with police, we're working with government, we're working with telephone providers to try and find solutions to this problem. And we're, you know, with our request for information that we put out, we're looking for, is there something that we could do to help people, you know, give them a tool that they can use to avoid.
Help themselves.
Yeah, to help them help themselves, because it's, you know, it's not an easy thing to do, to leave your phone alone, and we understand that.
Yeah.
But the benefits are enormous.
Keep going. Mark Milner, thank you very much for coming in and
Thank you.
sharing this information with us.
Happy to be here.